Poetically inspiring change. Poetically inspiring change for life, joy, peace in your body.
Hi, y'all.
Hi, y'all.
Angela Braxton Johnson here with Poetically Inspiring Change, and welcome to my podcast. And I'm so happy that you decided to tune in and be here with me. It's called Poetically Inspiring Change. And with Poetically Inspiring Change, I'm using a poetry. Expect to hear at least one poem, sometimes more. So you can expect to hear some poetry. My little one-line blurb, and I'm oldish, so I got to look at it. My desire is to have a space where intersectionality can be discussed, and intersectional healing can like we're holding space for intersectional healing and recovery. For me specifically, that's food recovery, eating disorder recovery. As far as intersectionality, I come to you from the intersections of Black, fat, oldish, female, and disabled. So those are the intersections that I live in today. When I was younger, I had all of those intersections except for oldish. Ageism is a thing, but so you can also add youth. That can be an intersection, especially in a culture that says children ought to be seen and not heard. I used to hear that all the time. Children should be seen and not heard. That's not true. So when I was younger, had all the other ones: Black, fat, female, those first three. And you'll hear me reference those in some of my poems. And then poor was an intersection that I spent some decades in. Poor, and then being young. So most of my life, I've been traveling through this life with at least 5 intersections. So my little blurb that you'll see on Instagram, if you go to Instagram. If you don't, check me out at Poetically Inspiring Change. Some things that I don't put on this podcast, I show processes of what I'm going through, or things that happened in my days, some behind the scenes stuff. It's poetically underscore inspiring underscore change. So it's poetically inspiring change. Just put an underscore between the 3 words. I'm a Black, fat, oldish, disabled sister poet using poetry and body stories for intersectional healing and diet culture recovery. How many of y'all need some diet culture recovery? Like, if you are in a bigger body, even if you're not in a bigger body, if you live in this world, you've been affected by diet culture. But even more so if you're in a bigger body. If you have ever dealt with anorexia or binge eating disorder or orthorexia, or just all different types of things, just always feeling like you were either too big or too small, too much or not enough. So this is a space where you can get some recovery from that. I share a lot of poems. I've written a lot of poems on diet culture recovery. Also, intersectional healing. So when I just mentioned the different intersections, every intersection has its own discriminations, right? Every intersection has its own isms. So for being a female, there's like male chauvinism, there's patriarchy, which is still very much alive and well. And patriarchy it's all throughout our existence. It exists in systems and schools and medical organizations or institutions, and families and churches. It's just everywhere, in government, definitely in politics. So every intersection has its isms, And so you can be dealing with one of those, and that can be enough to add just trauma to your life, or sadness and stress. So if you're dealing with one intersection, I mean, that's a lot. And then if you add two, then that's a whole lot. Have you ever been on a street? I'm originally from Alexandria, Virginia, and in the DC area, sometimes you have these intersections that are like just super busy. It might be like four or five different lanes, and and by the time they cross and intersect, it's a whole lot. It's a lot. So that's what I'm holding space for here. People who are dealing with a lot. And if you're dealing with one of those, you're still welcome here. So I'm going to start this as far as poetry by sharing a poem that I wrote that's called Inspired to Live Now. I'm not here to conspire or merely to teach. I'm here to inspire and hoping to reach that person inside of you who says, I can't do it. He's hardly reliable. In fact, he is fooling you. She does not welcome knowledge. She wants you to fear. Her presence will keep you in constant arrears. He gives false expectations that appear to be real, shows you ways to numb out so you won't have to feel. They're trying to protect you from being rejected. You'll lose your self-worth before you detect it. Unloved by yourself, unseen, unfulfilled, you'll lose all excitement. You'll lose all your thrills. They're afraid of failure and of the unknown. They want you to abide in your comfort zone. At the end of your rope, when you've mentally had it, he'll say, life is too hard and your body is tragic. But that's a bold-faced lie. So come home to yourself and experience your magic. Don't worry about those who are employed to critique. You're somebody special. You're someone unique. Don't believe all of the stigma, ridiculousness. Get grounded, stand up, be brave, and be blessed. You're royal. You're chosen, a child of the King. Every ounce of you sacred, every pound of you queen. And if that's for my sisters, and for my brothers, every ounce of you sacred, every pound of you king. So stop dieting and waiting to pursue all of your dreams. You are beautiful and worthy right now to be seen. Write down all of your goals and strive to take action and live your life with much more satisfaction. If your family and friends disagree and forsake you, these are trials to strengthen, reform, and reshape you. Go to therapy, create art, even yell if you must. Just keep breathing and lean into body trust. After all, body trust is your birthright. Strive to eat when you're hungry and stop when satisfied. Know that you can be healthy and whole at any size. Each day is a blessing, not one moment to waste. So seek out your purpose and find it with haste, because one thing that is certain for you and I, as sure as we're living, we surely will die. So live, live, live every day, every moment, every hour, every minute. And don't just go through. And remember, whatever you want in life, if it is to be, it is up to you. Snap, 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 snap. So for y'all who don't know me, when I share a poem, I don't wait for people to snap for me or snap with me. I'm a snap myself. So that's called Inspired to Live Now. And that's what I want to do. I want to inspire you to live now. I want to inspire you um, to get out of your comfort zone. And maybe some of you are waiting to get to a certain size. You're waiting to, like, oh, when I lose weight, I used to think this way. When I lose weight, I'm gonna do this. Oh, when I lose weight, I'm gonna become a yoga teacher. Let me start with that one. I wanted to be a yoga teacher. So in 2015, I got a certification to become a water instructor, water fitness exercise instructor. I like to call it aqua movement. And and then I got a couple of other certifications in hydrofit, and then maybe a couple of years later, almost, well, actually before then, I always wanted to become a yoga teacher. One of the reasons I wanted to become a yoga teacher is because when I went to a yoga, most of the classes that I went to, and I went to several, um, I didn't feel welcome and I didn't feel seen. So I remember one yoga class in particular. This was in the South Waterfront area, and I went to I had all my stuff. I was looking cute, and I went to the class, and when the teacher was showing how to do different poses, she never offered any modifications. And I just used that word, and I was in a body trust training 2 days ago, a reclaiming movement body trust training, and and they offered words like options and variations. So I will say that the yoga teacher didn't offer variations for each pose. So I was struggling on some of those, trying to do some of them, or I just like couldn't do it, or I just lay there and just be like, okay, I'm gonna just do my own thing and wait till the next pose. And she never saw me. She never came over to my mat to assist me. She never offered any different variation. She just continued to teach the class as if this body, this here body, didn't matter. So I thought, well, when I lose weight, now I'm saying weight in quotation marks for those who are listening. Um, in this space, weight is this is a weight neutral space. So we're not going to be talking about dieting or losing weight or gaining weight or that kind of thing unless it's in reference to something in opposition of diet culture, or unless someone is just sharing their story. So during parts of my story, like this one, back to the yoga incident, I thought, well, when I quote lose weight, end quote, then I can become a yoga teacher. And so I thought, that's what I thought. Like I was waiting. Like in that poem, it says, stop dieting and waiting to be seen because you are worthy. You are beautiful and worthy right now to be seen. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. In 2017, that's when I discovered Body Trust. Now, I am a certified Body Trust provider. And if you don't know about Body Trust is a modality of a healing modality for people wanting to reclaim their own body trust and to heal their relationship with food and their bodies. And so I found Body Trust, and it was back then, it was called Be Nourished. And by doing that, and at the time, I was also working with an eating disorder treatment facility. So for years, I'm gonna put a little bookmark in that. For years, I have been wanting to get help because I knew I had an imbalance with food ever since I was a little girl. And one of the reasons why I have this book right here, it's a book that I wrote called "Who's Watching Me," which is really tells a lot of the beginning of my body story. Um, and the little girl me was just a little cute fat little girl, and and she experienced a lot of trauma. She was in those intersections. Remember the five intersections she, me, black, fat, female, young, and poor. So um, that little girl experienced a lot of trauma, and she experienced abuse and sexual abuse. And this book goes into this 4-year old telling her story. And the book is written poetically, but it reads like prose. And there's rhyme and there's free verse. So in the free verse that reads like prose that doesn't rhyme, that's the little girl Annie talking. And in the part that is in rhyme, that is the adult Annalise talking. So I'll talk more about this book in another episode. But yeah, so I always thought that I had to be a certain size because that's what society told me in order to be seen. Like if you're going to take up space, you need to be, have this certain kind of body. You need to be smaller. You need to be thin or at least smaller or as socially acceptable size. Um, and so back to the yoga teacher, when I went to first I had gone to the eating disorder treatment, which I had tried to get help for years, and my insurance kept denying me, which was crazy to me. But again, I will talk about more of those. I'll share in depth more about some of those stories in future podcasts. Um, so I'd finished eating disorder treatment. Well, actually, I got kicked out. I got kicked out because I began to heal. So I'm gonna just go into this a little bit. In 2015, I had a trauma trigger. So because of some of the abuse that I experienced and wrote about in this book, Who's Watching Me, which it's available on my website, angelabraxtonjohnson.com / buy the books. So, so I had experienced abuse, sexual abuse. I had been separated from my family. I'd lived in a home where domestic violence happened from birth to about the age of 3. Transplanted into Oregon from the East Coast to the West Coast to a very, very white state where there wasn't a lot of people that looked like me. Um, and and so I was dealing with all of that. Anyway, I always throughout the years I didn't realize that I was doing that I had an imbalance with food. But I know that food was really important to me. I just loved food. I thought that I just really loved food. I thought that I was what people call a foodie. I thought I was a foodie. I didn't realize until I was much older that I had an imbalance with food, and that, uh, and then I learned a little bit about some things. Now in the church, I had heard about gluttony, and I didn't fully understand what that was, but it was talked about, and it always referenced fat people. And really, gluttony, if I mean that term, I don't even like the way it sounds. I don't like the word, but anybody, you can be in any size body, in the smallest size body, and have an imbalance with food. You can be a so-called glutton. That's not something I would call a person, but that's not something that is um, especially attributed to fat people or people in bigger bodies or plus size people. I embrace the word fat, as you heard when I talked about my intersections. But anyway, um, so fast forward to 2015, because of the trauma that I experienced and all of those different things, being separated from my birth family, my paternal family, my birth state, and coming all the way to Oregon, having lived in a home where domestic violence happened, not to me, but to mama, between mama and daddy. Um, Daddy was a perpetrator. I love my daddy, but daddy was doing what his daddy did. And, you know, so I was experiencing that. Then I was separated from my family, moved here to a very non diverse state in Oregon, Portland, Oregon. Then I went into a child care, the babysitter, and I got abused by the babysitter's child. Um, and that happened over and over. And, so that was, and it was very traumatic. It started at the age of 3. So it happened at ages 3 and 4. So that's a lot. And what happened in 2015, fast forward to 2015, is something happened in my life that caused a PTSD trauma trigger that I didn't know this then. I knew I had this like very pronounced reaction. And I found out through therapy that I was having, that was PTSD. And anyway, when that happened, the food became so loud. Food became so loud. I lived about 3 blocks from a Popeyes, famous fried chicken, I think it's called, but Popeyes. I live about 2 or 3 blocks from there. During that trauma trigger, I felt like Popeyes was calling my name, like, "Hey, Angie." Well, it would probably call me Angie or Angela, but if you call me Angie, you would have to have known me from like my family or before 1980-ish, before the 1980s. If you call me Angie, after that you call me Angela, and in some circles they call me Ange. But anyway, I I had this trigger and the food came on, and then I couldn't make it stop. And for me, I wouldn't necessarily eat like a whole bunch at one time, but I might eat at Popeyes like 3, 4 times in one week, which is a lot. That's a lot. That's for me. It was for this body. It was too much. Um, and everybody is different, and there's no judgment here. You might eat there every day. There's no judgment here. I'm just saying that for me and in my body, that was too much. And I knew it was too much, and I knew there was an imbalance happening, but I couldn't turn it off. um, so that's when I had tried to go to eating disorder treatment before then, and I never was able to get in. And then finally, this particular year, um, I couldn't get in. I tried to get in actually 2015. I couldn't get in. They denied me help. So I found 12-step recovery programs. And so that's going to be another episode where I talk about that experience. But I will say that while I found some peace and some healing in the 12-step rooms, I also developed an eating disorder from 12-step recovery programs. I had never been told not to eat flour and sugar. I like that was never a thing. That was never a thing for me. Like no foods were off the table before I went to that program. So that program actually, for me, gave me an eating disorder. And I'll talk more about that later. But then fast forward to 2017. So some more life had happened, and I had another trauma trigger, and the food got loud. When the food got loud, when it feels like the food is calling me, then I'm like, I need help. Like it's hard for me to stop. I'll say, oh, I'm not going to eat that tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes, and I'm eating that thing that I said I wasn't going to eat. Um, so anyway, this time when I called the eating disorder place, they um, they always would ask if I'm suicidal, and I always said no because I didn't feel like, I didn't want to kill myself. Um, but this time when they said, "Are you suicidal?" and I said, "Well," I said, "I'm killing myself one bite at a time." Does that count? And somehow the triage person was able to get me into a treatment program. So I ended up going to Montanito in Portland, Oregon, and and that I was introduced to health at every size that first couple of days. It was like a day, I think it was like a Monday through Thursday or Monday through Friday, but went several times. It was day treatment, and so I got health at every size, and combed through that in like 1 or 2 days. Read the whole book and then start reading it again. I got introduced to intuitive eating, and and then they began to talk about things, and most people in the program were there for like anorexia and things like that. um, I think there were only a couple of us in bigger bodies. So um, I ended up going to that program, and then let's see, 2017. So because when I actually started to heal, when I actually started to, like, the crazy in my head started to, like, get quiet, and I started having more peace and that kind of thing. Um, that's when, oh, they weighed you. They weighed me at the program. Like, I don't know how often, but I know it was at least once a week. And so they weighed me when I went there, and that was part of the determining factor of my health. Now, here I have mental health. I don't know how much a person's mind can weigh, but I know that a person's mind can cause them to not want to live, or can cause them to be very unhealthy or unhappy. So I don't understand how the scale was going to be determining my mental health, which is very much attached to the eating disorder or disordered eating, whatever I was dealing with. Um, so by week 3, I started to feel better. They anyway, I was feeling better. Treatment was working, and I gained a few pounds. And I don't know what the number was. I'm going to see if I can go back to Montenegro and find out what that number was. But after 3 weeks, they told me that my insurance was no longer going to cover me because I gained weight. I had also gained like a healthy mindset because I learned about health at every size. I learned about joyful movement. I learned about intuitive eating. So I got kicked out, got the boot. You can't see my shoe, but got the boot. They gave me the boot. And so then what part of my leaving is I had to find an outpatient program. And when I found that outpatient program, it was the Center for Body Trust, or Be Nourished. So anyway, um, I went to Be Nourished, and I got a whole bunch of treatment, and that's how I ended up later becoming a body trust provider. And I experienced a lot of healing there. I also experienced a lot of healing in healing groups, and in the church, like Refuge was one of the healing groups that used to be offered at Imago Dei Church, and taking classes like Mending the Soul, and other courses offered. So anyway, that is part of how the healing that I experienced. But I'm going to go back to, it wasn't until I did that work with the Center for Body Trust that I realized I could become a yoga teacher. I could be a yoga teacher. You could be a yoga teacher. And I really wanted to do that training for my own wellness. But I also am a teacher by calling. So I learn better when I'm teaching. I tend to get the lesson more. So um, I took a yoga teacher training class, and I became a yoga teacher. And then I was able to add my yoga teacher training to the water movement classes, and I was able to do aqua movement. So I've been doing a lot of living in this black, fat, oldish, female, disabled body, and I want to encourage you to do the same. And I've also healed some. Some of the disabilities that I have gotten better. Some haven't, but some have. So, and so I hope that in this space that you will find healing, that you will find nourishment for your mind, body, and soul, that you will find acceptance, that you will find love, um, that you will find inspiration to change anything that you are wanting to change in your life. So, with that, I'm going to end this episode. We have lots to talk about. Sometimes I will have a guest, but a lot of times it's just going to be me sharing parts of my story and always sharing my words. So, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye, y'all. Mwah.